This is the homework helper for Chapter 3, Section 7 in the workbook, which is entitled Adding and Subtracting Fractions. Now, as you can see in the bulk of the questions, 1 through 18, the directions are identical. We'll do a few different problems from these sections, but the directions say to add or subtract and to write the answers in simplest form. Now, we could only hope in this section that all the questions would be like number 1, and the joy of question number 1 is that we have a common denominator, which is important only when we add or subtract fractions, not when we multiply or divide. But when we have a common denominator, the bulk of the work has been done for us. If we don't have a common denominator, like 11 and 14 that you see ahead, we're going to have to spend time doing that work. But if we already have it, we can go right into the adding or subtracting step. Remember, when you add and subtract fractions, you only add and subtract the numerators, the tops. So all I'm going to do here in this problem is the 1 plus 2, which is going to change into a 3. The denominator, the number in the bottom, is going to stay exactly the same. So the 5 that's there is still going to be there, and we end up with 3/5. Now, as I said, in question 11 and in 14, we have different denominators, so we're going to have to spend time actually coming up with a common denominator. Common denominators are accomplished or achieved or earned or found, whatever you want to say, by using least common multiple. With 8 and 2 here, we actually don't have to touch the 8. I'll show you the least common multiple though. With least common multiple here, the multiples of 8 would go 8, 16, 24, 32, so on. And the 2 list is going to go 2, 4, 6, 8. And the match is at 8, so the common denominator is 8. Or in other words, the bottom number of both my fractions has to be an 8. And as you can see, on the fraction on the left, it actually already is. So I'm not going to change the fraction on the right, or the left. But the fraction on the right is going to have to change. To make 2 become an 8, I would have to multiply by 4. And so I'm going to do the exact same thing in the numerator to come up with an equivalent fraction, one that's going to make this problem have common denominator. And when I do 1 times 4, I end up with 4. So I have 3/8 plus 4/8, which is going to change into 7/8, and that's going to be my final answer. Now, had this answer have turned out to be something like 6/8, where I could take 2 out of both the numerator and the denominator, since the directions did say simplest form, I would have to reduce that down to 3/4. But that's only speculation because this answer was not 6/8. So with 7/8, I don't have to do anything because there's no number I can take out of both 7 and 8. Let's take a look at 14. 14 is going to advance to the next step because notice in this problem we didn't have to change any of the denominators. Here we had to change 1, and at this one we'll end up changing 2. This is also a subtraction problem, so we'll want to make note of that. I'm going to find the common denominator again by doing the least common multiple. For 8, it's going to go 8, 16, 24, as you already know because we just did that. And the 12 list is going to go 12, 24, 36, but I can stop because I see that the match, what is my least common denominator, my new denominator, my fractions, is going to be 24. Okay, so with the fraction on the left, to make that go to 24, 8 to go to 24, we multiplied by 3. So I'm going to do the exact same thing in the numerator, multiply by 3. And that's going to give me 21. To change 12 into 24, I'm multiplying by 2. So I'm going to use the exact same multiplier in the numerator, and that's going to give me 10. Alright, and so now I can actually subtract the fractions, combine the fractions here. Remember, the denominator is going to stay 24. The denominator stays the same. The only thing I add or subtract is the actual numerators. So I've got 21 minus 10. When I subtract the tops, the numerators, I get 11. And that's 11/24, and that's the final answer. Okay, we've got a couple story problems at the bottom, and again, we're going to apply the same logic we apply daily. If it's in the section about adding and subtracting fractions, chances are we're either going to end up adding or subtracting a fraction in the story problem. So it says that the school track is 7/8 of a mile in length, and that Sherry ran 2/3 of a mile. And we're supposed to figure out how much further does she have to go to get all the way around the track. So they're saying she hasn't run a whole lap yet, and we're supposed to figure out how much she would have left. In other words, the difference. Well, as you know from your mathematical keywords that we looked at long ago, that's going to mean to subtract. So I'm going to do 7/8 minus 2/3. Well, the problem we have here is we do not have a common denominator, so we're going to need that. All right, common denominator here is going to be 24, just as it was in question 14. The 8 list is going to go 8, 16, 24. And even though the 3 list is going to be longer, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. The match is at 24. So the common denominator here is 24. Well, to change this 8 into a 24, that would mean that I would have had to multiply by 3. So I'm going to multiply the top by 3 as well, and that's going to give me 21. To change 3 into 24, we're multiplying by 8. So I'm going to multiply the top by 8 as well. 2 times 8 is 16. So I've got 21 24ths minus 16 24ths. And when I subtract here, I've got 21 minus 16 in the numerator. That's going to give me 5. And the denominator is going to stay 24 because remember the denominator stays the same. And now we have an answer to our question. In context, that means that Sherry has to still run 5/24 of a mile in order to run around the track one full lap or one full time.